John Carter steered his rugged spacecraft, the Odyssey, through the lesser-known reaches of the Vela sector. His mission was to map uncharted systems, a solitary job that suited his preference for deep space over human politics. As the Odyssey cruised near a rocky, forest-covered planet identified only by its coordinates, a distress signal flickered across his console. Curious and cautious, John adjusted his course to trace the source. His ship broke through the atmosphere, landing near a clearing shrouded by thick alien foliage. Grabbing his gear, John descended the ramp and followed the signal on his handheld device. The beep led him to a scene of recent chaos. The wreckage of a small alien craft smoldered among the trees, its design unfamiliar and sleek. "Hello? Is anyone here?" John called out, scanning the area. From behind a charred piece of debris, a figure staggered forward. It was an alien, tall and lithe, with luminous blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. She was clutching her side, where her ornate clothing was darkened with blood. "Please, help me," she gasped in perfect interstellar English, surprising John. "Who are you? What happened here?" John approached cautiously, his training reminding him to stay alert. "My name is Serena," she said, her voice strained with pain. Was the Princess of Xylanth. I am fleeing from a coup. Assassins." She glanced nervously around. "They are still hunting me." John assessed her with a critical eye, noting her desperate condition. "A princess, huh? And you speak our language?" Serena managed a weak smile. "I studied your cultures at the academy. Please, I have nowhere else to go. They will kill me if they find me. I beg you to take me with you." John hesitated. The last thing he wanted was to get tangled in alien politics, yet he couldn't leave her to die. "All right, I can take you to the nearest outpost. You'll get help there." "No, you don't understand." Serena's voice broke in urgency, her hand reaching out to grasp his arm, her touch surprisingly warm. "I need more than just escape. I must hide where they cannot find me. I offer myself as your slave." John recoiled slightly. "I'm no slaver. That's not how we do things. But that is the only way I can be safe. Under your command, disguised as your property, they might stop looking for me," she pleaded, her gaze piercing. John looked back at his ship, conflicted. Finally, he sighed. "Listen, I'm not taking a slave, but I will help you. You can stay on my ship, under my protection, until we figure out a better plan." Relief washed over Serena's features. "Thank you, John Carter. You won't regret this." John doubted that as he helped her back to the Odyssey. As they ascended the ramp, he radioed his AI, Max, to prep the medical bay. "Max, got a guest with injuries, and prep for possible hostiles. We might have company soon." "Understood, John. Everything will be ready," Max's calm voice replied over the comms. John glanced at Serena, who was struggling to keep up. "Hang in there. We're almost aboard. And then we can sort out this mess you've dragged me into." Serena nodded, her expression one of gratitude mixed with a haunting trace of fear. As they stepped into the safety of the Odyssey, John couldn't help but feel his world had just gotten a lot more complicated. Inside the Odyssey's compact medical bay, John watched as the ship's medical drone administered treatment to Serena. Her injuries, while severe, were not life-threatening thanks to the advanced care technology on board. She rested now, the color slowly returning to her translucent blue skin. John turned to his AI companion, Max, as he reviewed the data on Xylanth from the galactic database. "Max, what can you tell me about the political situation on Xylanth?" Max's avatar flickered on the screen, displaying charts and intercepted communications. "Xylanth is currently unstable, John. The ruling monarchy was overthrown in a coup led by a military faction. It appears Princess Serena was targeted due to her lineage and potential claim to the throne." John rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it all. "And they'll keep hunting her?" "Affirmative. The new regime is consolidating power. Eliminating the royal family would prevent any legitimate challenges." John glanced over at Serena, her chest rising and falling evenly as she slept. "We need a plan, Max. I'm not equipped for a prolonged battle against a military junta." Max processed this, then suggested, "Perhaps we could seek refuge on a non-aligned planet or even in uncharted space. The longer we can avoid detection, the better our chances of formulating a more permanent solution." As they discussed options, Serena stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around, momentarily disoriented, then focused on John. "Where are we heading?" John pulled up a chair next to her bed. "Still deciding that. We're safe for now, but we can't stay in known space forever." Serena sat up, wincing slightly. I can't begin to express my gratitude for what you're doing, John. But I must warn you, the people who are after me, they're ruthless and well-connected. John nodded, his expression serious. Understood. We'll lay low and plan our next move carefully. Maybe head towards the outer rim. Serena's gaze hardened with a determination that seemed incongruous with her frail appearance. I want to help. I have knowledge and training that might be useful, and I'm not as fragile as I might appear. John studied her for a moment, then decided to take a leap of faith. All right. You can start by telling me everything you know about your chasers, their tactics, and how we might avoid them. Over the next few hours, Serena provided detailed information about the military faction that had taken over Xylanth. She explained their surveillance methods, their preferred ships, even the likely routes they would take to track her down. As the starlight streaked past the view screen, John and Serena mapped out a route to the outer rim, using less-traveled hyperspace lanes to minimize their exposure. They worked side by side, an unexpected team forged from necessity. Max chimed in periodically with updates and alerts, but it was clear that the dynamic between John and Serena was evolving, from rescuer and refugee to partners in a shared struggle for survival. John found himself respecting her knowledge and resilience, while Serena seemed to find some comfort in taking action, rather than being a passive fugitive. As the Odyssey slipped further away from the core systems, the stars seemed less a part of any known map, and more like dots in a vast, open sea. John set the coordinates for a small, obscure planet known as a haven for those who wished to disappear. It was a risk, but with every light year, John felt slightly more hopeful that they might just make it out of this unscathed. As the Odyssey made its way toward the outer rim, John and Serena settled into an uneasy routine. The confined space of the ship made secrecy impossible, and they were forced to confront their alliance head-on. Serena, still weak but recovering, spent hours poring over star maps and system data, her keen mind grasping the nuances of navigation and stealth tactics. John watched her, impressed by her adaptability. "You're picking this up quickly," he remarked one evening as they reviewed the latest sensor scans for any signs of pursuit. Serena looked up from the screen, her eyes reflecting a mix of pride and sadness. "I was trained to lead, to understand the workings of my world, and perhaps others. It's just, I never thought I'd be using these skills like this." "I understand," John replied, his voice low. "We're all playing roles we never expected." The conversation was cut short by an urgent beep from the console. Max's voice filled the cockpit. "John, I'm detecting multiple inbound vessels on an intercept course. Their signatures match those used by the Xylanth military." John's heart sank as he moved to the pilot's seat, his hands steady despite the adrenaline. "How long do we have?" "Approximately 15 minutes before they're within firing range," Max calculated. Serena joined John at the console, her expression determined. "Let's use the asteroid field in this system. It could give us cover and make it harder for their sensors to track us." "Good idea," John agreed, adjusting their course. The Odyssey dove into the dense asteroid field, weaving through the tumbling rocks with precision. Inside the belt, John reduced their power output to minimize their signature. The ship's hull creaked and groaned as smaller debris clattered against it. John and Serena watched the sensors intently, tracking the approaching ships. "They're slowing down. Seems like they're having trouble navigating the field," Serena noted, a hint of relief in her voice. "Yeah, but they're still on our tail," John said, his eyes scanning the options available. "We might be able to lose them if we can mask our exit." Using a narrow passageway between two large asteroids, John piloted the Odyssey with expert precision. They emerged on the other side of the asteroid belt, the ship's engines flaring back to life as they sped away from their pursuers. "Max, plot a course for the nearest uncharted system. Warp as soon as we're clear," John commanded. The Odyssey lurched as the warp drive engaged, stars stretching into lines as they entered hyperspace. John leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. "That was too close." Serena nodded, her gaze lingering on the star map. "They won't give up easily. We need a more permanent solution." John met her eyes, a plan forming in his mind. "There's a place I know, a hidden base used by smugglers and outlaws. It's risky, but they might offer us refuge, maybe even some reinforcements." Serena considered this, then slowly nodded. "It seems we have little choice. Lead the way, John." As the Odyssey continued its flight through the warp, the tension between survival and the unknown loomed large. But amidst the uncertainty, a bond forged by necessity and a mutual respect for each other's capabilities grew stronger. John and Serena, once unlikely allies, were now partners, each playing a crucial role in navigating the treacherous paths that lay ahead. The hidden base, known among the fringe as Haven, was nestled in a nebula in the far reaches of the Outer Rim. Its location was a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few who thrived on the galaxy's edges. John and Serena's arrival was tense, the nebula's swirling gases cloaking the Odyssey as they approached the shadowy outpost. As they docked, John turned to Serena, his expression serious. "Stay close to me and follow my lead. The folks here aren't exactly the welcoming type." Serena nodded, her royal demeanor shifting into one of cautious intrigue. "Understood. I'm no stranger to dangerous courts." They disembarked into the dimly lit docking bay, where a group of rough-looking individuals awaited them. A burly man with cybernetic eye implants stepped forward, his gaze appraising. "John Carter. Didn't expect to see you in this part of the cosmos. Who's your friend?" "This is Serena. We're here seeking refuge and possibly some assistance," John explained, his voice steady despite the tension. The man chuckled, his voice echoing slightly in the metallic chamber. "Refuge, huh? Well, you know the price of safety around here." John nodded. "I'm prepared to pay. We're also offering information. We've got military intel on the Silent forces pursuing us that might be valuable to you." The man's interest piqued, and he gestured for them to follow him to a more private area where they could talk. As they walked through the narrow, crowded corridors of Haven, Serena's acute senses picked up whispers and stares, the undercurrents of a society built on secrecy and survival. Once in the leader's office, a compact room lined with various alien artifacts, the man introduced himself as Rax Tolan, the unofficial mayor of Haven. "So, let's hear what you've got." John outlined the capabilities and recent movements of the Xylanth military forces, using the data Serena had helped gather. Rax listened intently, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "This is good stuff. Might just keep you two around for a while. But," Rax continued, "information isn't enough. I need a show of good faith. We've got a problem with a rival gang trying to muscle in on our operations. Help us out, and I'll consider your debt paid." John exchanged a glance with Serena, who gave a subtle nod. "We'll do it," he agreed. "Just give us the details." Rax outlined their mission, a surgical strike against the rival gang's outpost on a nearby asteroid. The plan was risky, requiring precision and stealth, exactly the kind of operation where John's tactical expertise and Serena's alien technology know-how could shine. Equipped with modified gear from Haven's armory, John and Serena set out in a stealth shuttle. The journey to the asteroid was tense, each aware of the stakes not just for their immediate safety, but for the potential backlash from the Xylanth military. As they neared the target, Serena's modifications to the shuttle's systems proved invaluable, masking their approach from the rival gang's sensors. They docked quietly and entered the outpost. The operation was swift and brutal, with John and Serena working in perfect sync to disable the gang's communications before engaging in a direct assault. The fight was fierce, but brief. With the rival gang's leaders captured and their operations disrupted, John and Serena returned to Haven, their mission a success. Rax greeted them with a rare smile. "Impressive. Haven could use people like you. Consider yourselves under our protection." As they settled into their temporary home, John and Serena both knew that this was only a respite. The Xylanth military would eventually find them, and they would need all the allies and preparations they could muster. But for now, they had secured a moment of peace and a powerful ally in the lawless expanse of the galaxy. Back at Haven, John and Serena's success in the mission garnered a brief period of safety and some respect among the inhabitants. Rax Tolan seemed genuinely impressed, and their status shifted from guests to valued members of the community. This newfound position allowed them access to resources that had been previously unavailable, including better communication arrays and advanced surveillance capabilities. Utilizing Haven's equipment, Serena set to work contacting loyalist forces within the Xylanth territories. She hoped to gather support for a counterstrike to reclaim her rightful position and destabilize the military junta that had usurped her throne. The communications were risky but necessary, and Serena managed them with the utmost discretion, using encrypted channels and proxy relays. One evening, while John reviewed the security protocols around Haven, Serena received a response from her contacts. Her expression, usually calm and composed, shifted to one of shock and betrayal. "John, she called, her voice urgent. Come quickly. John hurried over, finding Serena staring at a holographic message, her face pale under the glow of the screen. What's wrong? It's a message from my closest advisor, Talon. He's the one who betrayed me. He provided information to the coup leaders, ensuring my escape would fail and lead to my capture, she explained, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. John clenched his fists, anger rising on behalf of Serena's pain. Can we use this against him? Turn some of his allies to our side? Serena nodded, her mind already racing through possibilities. Yes, we can expose his betrayal. Many who supported the coup did so believing it was a united front. Knowing there's corruption at the highest levels might sway them to our cause. Working quickly, they prepared a broadcast using Haven's equipment, detailing Talon's betrayal and calling for support from those who still valued honor and the true lineage of Xylanth. The message was sent across multiple channels, reaching far into the Xylanth territories. Days passed with high tension. John and Serena monitored the channels for any sign of response to their broadcast. Finally, communications began to trickle in. Messages of support, outrage at Talon's actions, and commitments to aid Serena's cause. Amidst this turning tide, Rax approached them with news. You two have stirred up quite the hornet's nest, he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. There's word that Talon's forces are in disarray, questioning their leadership, but you've also painted a bigger target on your backs. John looked to Serena, who returned his gaze with a determined nod. We expected as much. We need to start planning our next move. Can we count on Haven for support? Rax rubbed his chin, pondering. I can offer some resources and maybe a ship or two, but remember, Haven's first rule is survival. We don't do suicide missions. That's all we ask, John replied. With enough support, it's not a suicide mission, it's a reclaiming. As plans for the counterstrike began to take shape, John and Serena knew they were stepping into dangerous waters. Betrayal had shaken Serena's trust, but it also hardened her resolve to fight not just for her throne, but for a just rule that the coup had robbed from her people. As they prepared, their bond, forged through shared struggles and mutual respect, became their greatest strength. Together, they planned not only a battle, but a revolution that could change the face of Xylanth forever. The final phase of their campaign was set into motion under a veil of secrecy. With the limited but vital support from Haven, John and Serena coordinated a multi-front offensive designed to strike at the heart of Talon's regime. The Loyalist factions, once scattered and disorganized, were now unified under Serena's banner, their resolve strengthened by the revelations of Talon's betrayal. As they prepared to depart from Haven, Serena looked over the gathered forces, a mix of seasoned Xylanth warriors and volunteers from Haven's fringe society. John, standing by her side, gave the final checks on their armaments and supplies. The stakes were clear, and their preparations meticulous. Are you ready for this? John asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. Serena nodded, her expression resolute. More than ever, it's time to end this. Their first target was the military base on Isolde, a strategic planet that served as Talon's supply hub. Capturing it would not only cripple his military operations, but also send a clear message to the galaxy about the strength of Serena's claim and the crumbling facade of the coup. The assault began at the break of the local dawn. John led a squadron of fighters in a daring orbital drop, piercing through the early morning skies like meteors. Meanwhile, Serena and her forces approached on the ground, moving swiftly through the rugged terrain to surround the base. The battle was fierce. Talon's forces, surprised and demoralized by the sudden and coordinated attack, faltered. John's experience in tactical warfare and Serena's intimate knowledge of Xylanth military strategies proved to be a formidable combination. They pushed forward, overcoming the defenses with a mix of brute force and strategic finesse. As the sun rose higher, the base fell, and with it, Talon's hope of maintaining control. His forces began to surrender, and soon the news of the victory spread across the system. The momentum was now clearly with Serena. System after system declared their allegiance to her, renouncing the coup and the false promises it had represented. Within days, she and John stood before the gates of the capital. A city that had once been her home, now scarred by the marks of conflict and betrayal. The final confrontation was less a battle and more a reclaiming of what had been lost. The capital's defenders, seeing the tide had turned, abandoned Talon, who was found hiding in the royal palace, desperate and defeated. John watched as Serena confronted him, not with the rage of a dethroned monarch, but with the dignity of a true leader. Talon was arrested, his fate to be decided by the people he had deceived. In the aftermath, Serena addressed her people, not from a throne, but from the steps of the restored Parliament building. "We will build a new Xylanth," she declared, "one where power is held not by lineage or force, but by the will of the people, a true democracy." As she spoke, John stood in the crowd, his mission complete, but his journey with Serena far from over. She had offered him a place by her side, not as a guardian or a general, but as an advisor and friend. Later, as they walked through the streets of the reborn capital, Serena turned to John. "You could stay, help us build this new world." John smiled, his gaze taking in the hopeful faces of the people around them. "I think my wandering days might be over. Besides," he added, "someone has to keep you from starting a galactic war." Serena laughed, the sound mingling with the cheers of a free Xylanth. Together they moved forward, not just to rebuild a kingdom, but to forge a new future, one based on equality, justice, and hope.